I'd like to welcome you to ESL's educational webinar series. This particular topic is on eTRU for sustainable success, solutions for sustainable success. My name is Erica Thorson, and I am the marketing manager at ESL, and I'm also your proctor for today's presentation. For those of you that are unfamiliar with ESL, let me give you a quick background. We have more than 30 years of experience engineering and manufacturing US-made equipment for electrification projects and have supplied customers worldwide with more than 300,000 electrical connection points. That enables them to save money and, of course, support their sustainability goals. And you will certainly learn more about that today. So during our presentation, if you happen to have a question, we have the chat open. Please feel free to add your question in the chat, and we will address your questions at the end. If we run out of time, we will make sure that we address those questions in an email that we will send out to everyone. I will also send out an email of a recording of this presentation along with the slides in the next few days. So please keep an eye out for that email as well. I would like to introduce our speaker for the day, Mr. Jonathan Dow. Jonathan holds a Bachelor of Engineering in Mechanical Engineering and is currently pursuing an MBA at Cal Poly Pomona. With 6 years of experience in industrial refrigeration as design and implementation engineer, he has developed a strong expertise in this field. For the past 14 months, Jonathan has been with ESL, where he has dedicated all his time to electrifying refrigerated trailers and expanding the eTRU market. His efforts are aimed at helping companies achieve their sustainability goals through initiatives with refrigerated solutions. And he is going to help us continue that initiative today. Jonathan, I'm going to go ahead and let you take everything away.
Erica, thank you so much for that introduction. Hello, everyone. As Erica mentioned, I will be your presenter today. And for this specific presentation, we are going to start with the agenda for eTRU Connect. And basically, we're going to go over an overview of the upcoming rules and regulations for eTRUs. Incentives and programs such as the carbon fuel standard, and then the different utility companies giving grants and incentives. Also, we're going to talk about compatibility with your fleets. Also, the sustainability impact, so how you can reduce your carbon emissions, how you can reduce your labor, your maintenance, and potentially extend your diesel engine lifetime. Next, we're going to be talking about diesel savings and cost savings as well, and how electrifying your fleets could potentially help you with those. It will also cover some of the sustainability goals as well. Then we'll talk about more of the implementation side of the business, so the installation process from the electric point of view, and then from the trailer point of view, and then what are some warehouse requirements and considerations that you will need to think of when you're actually implementing these projects. And then we'll talk about what is the infrastructure needed for these units, and what are the different types of units and configurations of units that you might have at your one facility. And then we'll look a little bit into the future, so how we can future-proof today for tomorrow and have the proper equipment set in place. And then what are some next steps that ESL is taking with partnerships with different companies in order to tackle these future technologies. So first of all, we're going to talk a little bit just about the eTRU Connect for everyone to be aware of what it is. Basically, I'm going to start with what it is not. It is not a charging system. It is actually a shore power system that delivers basically 20 kilowatts of electricity to trailer units in order to operate them rather than use their diesel engines, potentially saving money on diesel and also saving the emissions and reaching sustainability goals for companies. Now we're going to talk about the first part of the agenda, which is the overview of rules and regulations. So we've seen a lot of rules and regulations originate from the ARB, which is the Air Resource Board, and specifically the one in California. as of today, we have a set of rules set by CARB in order to meet zero emission fleets by the year 2035, basically. And it states that all sales for new trailers should be 100% zero emission by the year 2035. So basically, no diesel trailers will be sold after that year. And a lot of different states, 15 in specific, have also committed to these new requirements as well. Another set of rules, which was set by the Southern California Air Quality Management District, is the Rule 2305, which states that specific warehouses, and this is a warehouse-specific rule, but it also covers the TRUs. So specific warehouses starting from 100,000 square feet all the way up will need to fulfill certain points and requirements using greener energy or greener methods of operations in order to fulfill those points. So the last phase for that rule was implemented, or is going to be implemented, on July the 2nd of this year. Then we're going to talk about some incentives and programs that are available to help you install these units at your site. Basically, these programs and incentives are there to facilitate electrification for companies and warehouses. Now, they are more of region specific. For example, in California, many utility companies have rebates and different types of rebates. We've seen some utility companies give infrastructure for the shore power units. So they provide all the infrastructure, and then all the company needs to do is purchase and install the units. And then other utility companies provide rebates for up to $1,500. Some utility companies in Texas also provide rebates of up to $1,000. In Missouri, we've seen very good numbers of up to $1,600 per unit, which is approximately half of a very nice shore power unit. It covers half of the cost of it. And then we have another program that's available, which is the low carbon fuel credits program. Basically, this program, by electrifying your vehicles on site, you're basically using kilowatts from your utility company, and those kilowatts are recorded and they are submitted in order to get something called carbon credits. It's very much like the stock market with the credits. Their prices fluctuate, and we've seen an average of about so only in the United States, this is covered in California, Oregon, and Washington, and then outside of the United States, it's covered all over Canada. So just in the United States, we've seen an average of about 7 to 10 cents per kilowatt used. And keep in mind that these units are 20 kilowatts each. So you do have a lot of savings to be made on these, and the money that's generated from the carbon fuel credits could be used for electrifying your fleets again. So you could expand your projects doing that. Then we'll talk about the compatibility with your fleets. So basically, how are these units compatible with your fleets, and how you should recognize the different configurations. First of all, you need to make sure that your fleets or your trailers are, your reefer units are basically electric standby capable units. So they should have the electric standby capability. And you can basically very easily check that by going to the front of the trailer and looking underneath the unit and seeing if there is a plug over there, or by calling your manufacturer. And then the eTRU Connect in specific utilizes the standard IEC connector, and in more details, it's the IEC 6039. And these connectors are available on most, if not all, OEM reefer units in the market. On the right side, you will see different configurations of different plugs. And the first one, which is on the left side, refrigerated truck trailers, that is the more available one for trailers, and this is the most common that we've seen for shore power, basically. And it has the 7 o'clock configuration. So basically, the ground sleeve and the keyway form a 7 o'clock configuration, and that is why it is unique to trailers. We also see the plug for ISO containers. Basically, 32 and 30 amps will use the same power, or the same shore power unit, in order to power either the container or the trailer. However, we see a different configuration. So the same plug will not fit on both trucks and trailers or ISO containers. And then a totally different configuration, which is for box trucks or straight trucks, some people call, is a 50 amp, 240 volt connector. And that is how the market is heading towards right now. And we are seeing a lot of people deviate from the twist lock, which is a more risky way of using your shore power capable. And as we mentioned, each connector has its own configuration, and each of these connectors has its own specific and unique inlet kit. And the inlet kit is basically what takes the plug from the front of the trailer all the way, or the truck or the container, all the way to the back. Now, not so much with containers, as they already have a 60-foot cord on them. However, in trucks and trailers, we have seen that that is very, very useful to have the plug at the back instead of at the front, which facilitates operations and a lot of things. And each trailer inlet kit has a drive-away feature. So they are positioned at a certain degree, at a certain angle with the trailer, so that it is very easy for the connectors and plugs to slide away from each other in case a drive-away happens. Now we're going to jump into safety, which is, in my opinion, part of the, one of the most important topics on this presentation. And when we look at safety and how we design units, it's basically we're looking at what are the conditions that this unit is sitting in. And these units are most of the time sitting in yards and in trailer parking areas, which are very harsh conditions if some of you have been there, due to, since they're outdoors, so we have a lot of weather and temperature effects on it. So rain, snow, dust, sand, sometimes insects, sometimes a lot of things. So all of these different factors will potentially harm the units, and that is something we need to be accountable for. And then temperatures, so very high heat and sunlight could harm different components, and then very cold temperature could also harm other components as well. So that's something that's also needed to be accounted for. And then more on the operational side of the business, we also see some harsh conditions. So operators tend to be multitasking while they're on the yard. And in hot summer days, or in very cold winter days, then it's not really easy to concentrate on very small details. So we consider that mistakes could happen. Also, with drivers, we've seen drive-aways happen very frequently, as drivers forget to unplug the plug from the trailer, and they would just drive away with it still connected. So to protect the operators and also to protect the units, we should be able to have a very, very safe and well-designed and well-engineered system. And our connector is basically designed to prevent making or breaking under electrical connection. So we do that in order, because we've seen a lot of different risks on site, and I'll explain how that is done. However, the risks that we see are basically plugs left open. So if the circuit breaker is still on, you don't really want anyone having their finger inside of there, because they're going to get electrocuted, right? That is one of the risks that we've seen. Other risks could be the plug just sitting in a puddle of water, and then they could get electrocuted just by stepping in there or by putting their hand close to it. And then some broken components or exposed contacts to the operators could also lead in very tough electrical shocks. So the steps that we've done is basically we have integrated some safety features into our plug and cable in order to prevent any electricity going through that cable and through the plug. Even if the circuit breaker is turned on, you will not have electricity unless it is completely plugged into the system. So as soon as it is unplugged from the system, then you will lose all power, you will lose all electricity, leaving anyone touching exposed components or anyone by accident touching the sleeves inside of the plug or anything like that, they will be away from harm, which is a very, very good thing to have. And then the last point that I wanted to make about safety is the drive-away features that we spoke of earlier. So drive-away features, they should be designed to protect both the operators and the units as well, while also preventing arcing. So we are looking at not only protecting the operators, which is the most important thing. However, we've also looked at protecting the units and also preventing arcing, which you will see in the next video on how we do that. And I could go a little bit into the explanation of that. So now we're going to look at this short video. So this is how it pulls away from the actual box itself. And this is how it pulls away from the trailer or from the box truck. And I'm going to repeat this because I know it is very nice to see. And if you notice over here, we have the first two little wires that are on the left side of the terminal blocks. Those disconnect first. I'll do it one more time so you can pay attention to this detail. So the two that are on the left, they disconnect first. And those are the two wires that are basically controlling the power to the cable and to the plug. So as soon as we cut those off, then we are losing power to that cable and to the plug. In case a drive-away feature happens, a drive-away scenario, happens, then you're immediately losing power. As you lose power to the cable, as the three different phases of the wires pull, you will prevent arcing, and that's how we prevent arcing. The same concept is also inside of the plug. It pulls out first. The element that's controlling the power also will disconnect, and you will lose power before arcing has a chance to happen. And now we are going to talk about how this impacts your warehouse, how this impacts your business and your fleets. So we're going to look at two different impacts that this has. The first is the sustainability impact, and then we're going to look at the cost savings impact. So when we look at the sustainability impact, some of this is very important to companies, and it really depends on the company's goals. But usually we've seen that each gallon of diesel emits about 22 pounds of CO2. And just so you know, a regular eTRU, so a trailer or a reefer unit will burn between 3/4 to 1 gallon of diesel, depending on how well it's maintained. Will burn 3/4 to 1 gallon of diesel per hour. So every hour, basically, we are burning, let's say, 20 pounds of CO2. And then for facilities that are in very, let's say, residential or densely packed, like companies close to each other, this really reduces the noise level, and your neighbors, will be very much more happy to be around there, because you're basically turning off your diesel engines and you're only running the electric part of your trailer. So you will not have any diesel engines roaring throughout the night. And especially if you have more than 5 or 6, some companies have 20, 30 trailers, then those things can get very, very loud. Also, since we are turning off our diesel engines, then we're only using the electric standby solution when we are on site or when we are in the warehouse, then we are basically increasing the lifetime of our diesel engines. So we're increasing the lifetime of the equipment that we have. And numbers have shown, out of experience, these are not hard numbers, but out of experience, we've seen the lifetime for these go up by 20 to 30%. And then when we go into the cost saving aspect of eTRU Connects, we look at, different states have different potential for saving money, because diesel costs vary in different states and electricity costs vary in different states. Also, we've seen different companies with their operations have different savings as well. Some companies would rather stage their trailers for a long time, and then other companies would rather just have them load or unload and then go on their trip. So all of these play a role in saving money on diesel, basically. First of all, we're going to say that diesel is more expensive than electricity in most states at most times. And I say that because there are some periods of time throughout the day when electricity could be more or as equally expensive as diesel. And then some of our studies show with us and different companies that savings could range from 40 to 60% depending on usage. So as I mentioned, depending on how much you use them, how much they're sitting on your site and all of that, then this is how much you could potentially save in money on diesel. We also see that maintenance on your diesel engines is decreased substantially with electrifying TRUs. So you're not accumulating those runtime hours on your diesel engines, and that will reduce maintenance a lot. Also, for larger fleets, we've seen that labor, logistics, and just the time for refueling your TRUs takes a lot of effort, and it costs a lot of money. Having that storage capability on your site and also going ahead and refueling everything, especially if you stage them for a long time. If they're sitting there for 6 to 8 hours overnight, then you're going to have to refuel them in the morning. If you are going to stage them during over the weekend, then you're going to have to do that also during the weekend, which is just additional labor and additional cost to your company. And then looking at all of these and all of these savings, we have been reported by some of our customers that the ROI for the eTRU Connect, basically, or for using shore power, is around 1 to 1.5 years. And to back up these numbers, we have a calculator which is on our website. The link is below. So after, I believe, we send over the slides over to you, you'll be able to access this easily. So you can feel free to go into that calculator, plug in your numbers. Basically, you're going to put in how much diesel costs in your state or in your facility, how much electricity costs for you, and then what is the number that you're using it for. So how many hours you're plugging in your trailer, how many trailers are you plugging in, and how many days a year. And it'll basically give you not only the cost savings for diesel, but it will also give you how many pounds of CO2 you are not emitting into the atmosphere and into the environment. And after you look at all the sustainability and savings, then you start to think about, how am I going to implement this project on my site? And first of all, you need to make sure that you know what you're plugging into. So after we've, in the first couple of slides, I mentioned that with the compatibility slide, we need to make sure that our trailers or trucks are compatible with these units. So they have the capability to be plugged in. That is the first step. And then we look at determining what power is needed. So are we plugging in trailers which use 480 volts, or are we plugging in box trucks which use 208 volts? So also over there, you need to do that little bit of research, and that will tell you which type of unit you need. Do you need a 50 amp breaker on your unit, or do you need a 30 amp breaker on your unit, which is for trailers? And just a rule of thumb, each of these units utilizes 20 kilowatts of electricity. So basically, we say that for each 50 units, you're using 1 megawatt of electricity. And that comes to the second, or basically third point, which is how many units am I going to install? And that question is very, very important, because if you are going to install just 1 or 2 of these units, then most likely your facility has the power to be able to support the units. However, if you're going to go with 60 or 70 units, then you're talking about 1 to 1.2 or 3 megawatts in electricity. Now you need to start looking at, do I need to upgrade my power? How am I gonna approach the utility company? Are there any incentives for this? How much time is it gonna take? Do I need to have transformers, switch gears, panels? What am I gonna have? And then where am I gonna place my switch gears? So if I have new ones, am I gonna put them closer to the units, or am I gonna put them farther away? And that really comes to how your warehouse is designed and how you plan to design the upgrade. And then, where am I placing the units? Basically, we've seen 2 different main configurations for these, which is at the docks. So basically when you are loading or unloading, and then in the yard when you are basically staging or just sitting there. Another type of unit that we've seen become very more popular is for the maintenance garages. So a lot of the times you will have companies that have a maintenance garage inside of their facility, and that is where they will store, or that is where they will install one of these units in order to be able to maintain and to repair their trailers if needed. And basically at the end, when you're gonna go into a little bit more detail and think about how am I gonna run my infrastructure. So, and I only mention this because I've personally seen a couple of ways that companies have already done this. The first, which is the more common one, is digging up trenches, laying up conduit, and doing all of that. And then the second, which is overground raceways, which is basically you running your cable over the ground and protecting it with overground raceways, which will cover it, and they hold a lot of weight. Uh, you need to look at it from your perspective to see if it makes sense for your facility. Other questions that might be asked are, and these might have different considerations to make, and that's why we mentioned them in this slide. Does my system need cable management? Do I want to install cable management? Does it make sense for me? And basically, we think of that is because cable management typically, and you'll see this in the next slides, typically will need different pedestals. So over in this picture on the right, you see pedestals that are yellow. So basically with cable management, we will change that and give a pedestal that is ready for cable management. Also, if you want to install them on dock units, then that will also need different considerations as well, because you're going to need more footprint between those docks. Also, are your trailers already equipped with a rear connection for easier operations? And I say a rear connection because that is one of the most important things that you can do for your operators, is have a short cable for them to be able to operate these with ease. And so a trailer typically is 53 feet. If you want to plug it in at the front of the trailer, you're going to need approximately 70 feet of cable so that you have some slack on the floor and you're able to plug it in at the end. That is very hard for operators to put back. It causes a lot of problems. Sometimes they're left on the ground and the next trailer coming in is going to drive right over the things and damage them. So we've seen a lot of different scenarios with 70 feet cable that could potentially be difficult for you to operate. That is why we always recommend that trailers have an inlet at the rear of their vehicle so that they can utilize a 5, 10, 15 foot cord in order to operate their units. Now we look at the infrastructure needs and what are the different types of units. So first of all, we see these 3 different types of units on the right side, and the infrastructure needed for these 3 units. And you're going to see almost the same exact unit for all 3 different configurations. So for trailers and containers, and I purposely mentioned that they are both 30 amps. However, the plug for containers is 32 amps. And that is only the configuration of the plug. It's not really the power that is inside of the unit. So both of these would need infrastructure of 30 amps, 480 volts, and 3-phase power. However, when you go to box trucks, you're looking at 50 amps, 208 volts, and also 3-phase power. And as I mentioned in the previous slide, we have 2 different models or 2 different types of applications for these units. The first of them is the dock mounted, which you can see clearly here in the first picture on the left. So dock units are typically used for loading and unloading, not very much for staging. However, some applications, they could be used for staging. It depends on, again, the company and the operations inside of the facility. However, we've seen that time range from half an hour all the way up to 2 hours, and that is basically the average of it. And then the other place where we've seen very popular nowadays is the yard units, and those are used for staging. And that could vary from just a few hours to overnight cooling to probably in some cases over the weekend cooling. And these units are the two units that are on the right. So the first one is without cable management, the middle picture, and then the one on the right is the unit with cable management. And both of these, as you can see, there are two eTRU connects on them. Since trailers usually park back to back on parking yards, so we would like to facilitate using two at the same time without a lot of space, without a lot of pedestals being made. So we have mounted both on a single pedestal in order to serve two back-to-back trailers. A lot of different options which you could think about when selecting these units are actually very helpful for your applications, and each of them has a specific purpose. So strobe lights, as you can see over here, the red beacon light on top, that is basically not connected to the output power of the system. It's connected to the input power of the system. And I say that because it is separate from the breaker being turned on and off. This beacon light will go on as soon as the plug is plugged into the trailer. Regardless if the breaker is on or off, we want to be able to signal the driver that he's plugged in and not to drive away. So this is like a signal for him to not drive away. And then another similar thing is dock integration. So instead of signaling the driver through a strobe light that we could install, we will be signaling the driver not to drive away using an existing dock signaling system, which could be, those red and green traffic lights that you could have on your docks. We could actually integrate into those and be part of that system. So, for example, if the door is not closed, if the dock is not in place, then the light will be red. Same thing with eTRUs. If it is still plugged in, the light will be red and not turn green until the driver comes and pulls it out. Cable management, which is very helpful to pull back the cables. It's very much more comfortable for operators to use. Plus, it potentially saves some money, since you're not going to have cables laying on the ground. They're not really susceptible to damage and all of that. Dual units, which are, I just mentioned, yard units serving two trailers at a single time. And then we have a lot of different cord lengths ranging from 5 all the way to 70 feet, depending on your application. So if you have the plug at the back of the trailer, we wouldn't really recommend anything over 20 feet. If you would have a plug at the front of the trailer, also nothing really less than 60 feet. So yeah, this is in regards to the type of the units. Now we take a look at what is the future of this product, right? So currently this is a transition phase, and the eTRU Connects help us meet the current regulations and strongly position us for the future transition into full charging. Basically, what this is saying is that in the future, we're going to have battery electric trailers. Now, when that comes, no one really knows. The technology, in some people's opinion, is not there yet. And then, however, we've seen that this is the way that the technology is going to head. It is basically bumping up your power from 20 kilowatts to 30 kilowatts. It's still AC, it's still 480 volts, and you'll be utilizing the SAE J3068 plug, which is originally a European plug. So this is how we see that the future is going to be charged. And we are working to have a smooth transition and for the eTRU Connect to be easily integrated into the future. So this is why we really recommend for you to install that infrastructure today and future-proof your warehouse for tomorrow when this comes into play. Because it is going to be expensive if you already have that 20 kilowatt infrastructure, to dig up again and install another 30 kilowatt infrastructure for your charging stations later on. In addition, we have also partnered with a company that is introducing a faster mode of charging, which is a conductive charging solution. And our partnership with Elonroad was first mentioned at the ACT show a few weeks ago. So Elonroad is basically a Swedish company that has provided a autonomous charging system. And this is a DC power contact charging system which utilizes the CCS protocol for charging. It is made of basically three main components. So first of all, we look at number one, which is the parking rail. And that is set on the floor underneath the trailer. And it could be flush, it could be a little over the ground mounted, or, there are different configurations for it. And this is basically what will deliver the power from the utility or from your power source to the trailer in order to charge it. Also, there's another part, which is number two, which is the actual charger. And this could provide a range of 60 to 150 kilowatts of DC power to the parking grill, which will then electrify or which will then charge the trailer. This could be placed separate and far away from the parking grill, which will help in your warehouse logistics, basically, or your footprint on your docks. So it could be set far away, and it could serve about 10 to 12 parking grills at a single time. And this part of the unit is what takes the utility power, which is 480 volts from your system, from your facility, and it will transform it into DC power. And depending on what the requirements for your battery management system is, it will deliver the necessary power to your trailer in order to charge it. Part three, which is the energy collector, this is how it's called, or what we call it. This is the part that will actually self-deploy, and this is the most autonomous part of the system. As a truck parks over the parking rail, the system will detect that it is correctly parked over it, and it will self-deploy, giving it a chance to engage with the parking rail. Shutting down the vehicle also will engage it, and this is where all the controls is, and this is what will transfer the power from the parking rail into the trailer, charging the battery and charging the system. Furthermore, as a lot of fleets nowadays have management systems, this system also comes with a digital and cloud service, so you'll be able to see all of your numbers basically on your computer, and you'll be able to see, how your charge management is, how your power load is, how your energy management is. And basically there is an option with these where you can have smart charging or demand charging, which basically when you have several parking rails connected to a single charger, that is where you can add the option of demand charging, which will look at how much is each battery requiring, and it will try to save you some power in order to not fully give, for example, 60 kilowatts to each battery. It will give depending on what is needed for each battery and what is the state of charge of each battery. So everyone, this finalizes our presentation, and Erica, I think it is time for some questions, I believe.
So I'll give everyone a couple of minutes. If you have a question, please go ahead and put it in the chat, and I'm pretty certain that Jonathan will have an answer for anything that you may have for us. One other item, the Elonroad that Jonathan just mentioned, we're currently in the pilot program stage for that. If you're interested in additional information, please feel free to contact Jonathan and he can get you set up with that.
Yes.
And I'm going to provide a shameless plug. Please follow us on LinkedIn so that you can receive additional updates on webinars that we have for the future, trade shows that may be coming up, and any product developments. We'd love to see you all on there. And I'm still not seeing any questions, Jonathan. Some kudos. Looks like everyone thinks that your information was spectacular. So thank you for doing this for us. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. Erica, thank you for organizing this. I really appreciate it.
All right. Keep an eye out for the email. I'll send this in a couple of days, and you'll have a copy of everything you need. Thanks so much, everyone.